Good morning, my dear children. Today we are going to start a new lesson. Lesson name Separation of Substances. What is the lesson name, children? Separation of substances. So, how we are going to separate in a single solution? How we are going to separate it into two? So, today we are going to see how to separate substances. So, here you take page number 45 in your semester 2 book, children. You would have seen your mother cleaning rice before cooking it. The grains are also cleaned in rice mills and the clean rice is packed in sacks. Have you ever wondered why they are cleaning those things? So here, substances such as sand, straw, chaff and so on are present along with the rice grains. They need to be removed from the rice for it to be edible. So here we all know that this rice comes from the plant. So this is the source of a plant. So small sand or straws might be in the rice. That's why it will be cleaned in the rice mill. Not only that, from there might be they can extract many things from that. But even though there will be some sand or mud in the rice. So that's why our mother will be cleaning the rice in our home every day once before she is going to start her cooking. So here, substances can be pure and impure. Pure substances have only one kind of substance. Impure substances are mixture of that have two or more kinds of substances. So pure means it is only one substance. So if it is rice, it is only rice. Impure means inside the rice, it might be sand, straw, it will be included in the rice. In this lesson, we will learn about mixtures. Homogeneous and heterogeneous solutions, separation and insoluble and soluble substances and various separation techniques. So in this lesson, we are going to learn about homogeneous and heterogeneous, and then we are going to learn what is solution, and then separation of insoluble and soluble substances, and the last one is various separation techniques. Shall we move to the lesson, children? The first one, mixture. So here, a mixture is formed when different substances combine together. So nothing but a mixture is different substances combines together is called a mixture. There are two types of mixtures. What are they, children? Here, homogeneous and heterogeneous. So the two types are homogeneous and heterogeneous. In a homogeneous mixture, substances are evenly spread out and mixed well. For example, sugar in water. So homogeneous means, for example, in water and sugar inside the water. So it will be equally mixed. So when you are going to add the sugar, what happens? It will equally mix in the water. In a heterogeneous mixture, substance remain separate as they do not mix. For example, sand in water. So here the sugar dissolves in water, which is homogeneous. When you go to heterogeneous, here sand inside the water. How long you also mix it? You cannot mix the sand with the water. It will be still separating, isn't it? So that's why it is called heterogeneous mixture. Is it clear, children? So here next one, solutions. The next one is solutions. So nothing but solution here. Add a sugar to water and taste the water. So first you are going to add sugar to the water and you are going to taste the water. It will taste sweet. Similarly, add salt to the water and taste the water, it will be salty. So we all know that when you are going to add sugar, it will be tasty. That means it is sweet water. When you are going to add salt, it will be like salty. So it is called salty water. Here, some solids dissolves easily in liquid. So some, when you are going to add, it will dissolve easily in the liquid. The solid that dissolves in the liquid is called the solute. So here, whatever the substance which dissolves inside the water is called solute. The liquid in which the solute is dissolved is called solvent. So for example, here salt. It is going to be mixed inside. So that's why it is called solute. Water. In that the salt is going to be dissolved. So it is called solvent. So here one solute plus solvent. When these two things added, which will be equal to solution, then a new solution will be coming out. So here the liquid which we get when a solute is dissolved into a solvent is called solution. So this solute and the solvent mixed together and it will be giving you a solution. Is it clear, children? Solutions are largely homogeneous mixtures. So solutions are largely homogeneous mixtures. It will be equally spread inside. In the salt, water and sugar, water solution. Salt and sugar mixed well in the water and it dissolved in it. Salt and sugar are the solutes and water is the solvent. Salty water and sweet water are the solutions. So here the examples for the solutions. Salt is the solute, solvent is the water. When it is being combined, your salty water is your solution. Next example, sugar plus water which will give you a sweet water which is the solution. Is it clear, children? So this example is given for you in your book. And the next one is soluble substances. So here we said that soluble and insoluble substances. Salt and sugar are the example for soluble substances. Solids such as salt and sugar which dissolves in liquids are known as soluble substances. So we already said what are all the things which dissolves in the water is called soluble substances. Solids such as sand and chalk powder that do not dissolve in water are known as insoluble substances. Here, insoluble substances means sand and chalk. Even though you are going to mix it with the water, what happens? It will not dissolve inside the water. You can see it in a separate way. That's why it is called insoluble substances. So children, here soluble substance example is salt and sugar. Insoluble substance example is chalk and sand. Is it clear? Is it clear to all children? The next one where we are going to go is separation of substances. Separating is insoluble substances. So here, what is the meaning of separation of substances? Substances can be separated from solution in certain cases. We can do this by following different processes depending upon the types of mixtures. So there are many methods of separating. Shall we see what are they? Separating insoluble substances. So we know that two types of substances, soluble and insoluble. So first we will see how the methods which are been separating insoluble substances. Here, insoluble substances such as sand can be separated from water by the following methods. The first method is filtration. The first method is filtration. Children, listen clearly. I will read now. We can separate insoluble solids mixed with the liquid through the process of filtration. In this process, we pass the liquid through the filter as shown in the diagram below. To separate sand from water, the mixture is poured into a funnel that is lined with a filter paper. Filter paper has tiny holes called pores that allow only liquid to pass through but no solids. So here, when the sand-water mixture is poured into the funnel, the sand particles are left behind the filter paper. These sand particles are called the residue. So these are called the residue. Water that passes through the filter paper is called filtrate. So nothing but children here. So I will be having the mixture and I will be having a funnel and here what happens, I will use a filter paper inside here. So I will place a filter paper here and then I will pour the solution. What happens here? So the filter paper will not allow the sand or whatever it is. So it will be stayed here itself and the remaining pure water will be coming down to the funnel, to the container. So this process is called filtration. Is it clear, children? Your next one, decimentation. So sedimentation. So children, it is sedimentation. So here what happens? Fill a glass container with a mixture of sand, clay and water. Stir the contents well and set aside the container undisturbed. And what happens here? For 10 minutes. So fill all these things. Take a container, add water, sand and clay. Keep it aside for 10 minutes. Then after 10 minutes, you will notice that sand has settled down at the bottom of the container, while clay has settled above the sand. This is because sand is heavier than clay. a light brown liquid which is a mixture of water, and the remaining clay is found above the layer of clay. So here what happens, children? After 10 minutes, what happens? The sand will be at the bottom of the container, and a brownish color liquid, which is the clay substance, which will be above the bottom. Why? Because sand is heavier than the clay. So sand has a much heavier weight than the clay. So you can see a clear content of sand first, and then a clayey substance of liquid, and then the pure water. So here, when insoluble solid is mixed with the liquid, it settles down at the bottom of the liquid. This is called sedimentation. The insoluble solid which settles down at the bottom is called sediment. So nothing but an insoluble substance. For example, sand or whatever it is, it might be chalk, whatever. So when you are going to mix it, after 5 minutes, what happens? It will settle down at the bottom of the container like this. So that's why it is called sedimentation. So the bottom which has been stored is called sediment. So that's why this process is called sedimentation. Is it clear, children? So children, the next one is decantation. So here what happens? After some time, the dirty water above the layer of clay will become clear water. So what happens here? The dirty water, after some time, it will become a clear water. This is because the clay particles mixed with the water will settle down slowly, and the brownish water becomes clear. So already we said the water is brownish. So what happens here? Now the clayish water will be clear. So the clay will also settle down at the bottom. The clear water can be poured carefully into another beaker without disturbing the sediment at the bottom of the beaker. The process of transferring the clear liquid without disturbing the sediment is known as decantation. So the process of changing the clear water to another filter or another container is called decantation. So now the clear water, the clay is also at the bottom and the sand is also at the bottom. So what happens? The clear water, we can change it into another container, so which is called decantation. So clear, children? So these are the three types of insoluble substance separation. The next one is separating soluble substances. The first method is boiling. What is the first method, children? Boiling. So here we learned how to separate insoluble substances from a liquid through two different processes. We will now learn how to separate soluble substances from a solution by the following methods. So here the first one is boiling. To obtain salt from salt solution, we can heat the water solution and bring out it into boil. During this process, boiling water will evaporate slowly, leaving behind the salt in the vessel. So it is a simple method, children, nothing but. So what happens here? During the process of boiling, water will evaporate slowly, leaving behind salt in the vessel. So how much you boil it, the water will evaporate as a gaseous state, and then what happens? The salt will be remained in the vessel. The next one is crystallization. What is the next one, children? Crystallization. Here, crystallization method can be used to separate soluble substance from water. It is commonly used in industries to obtain pure sugar. Take a solution of sugar water. In the first step of crystallization, the solution is passed through a filter paper to remove the insoluble substances. So first what happens? First the sugar solution is poured into a container which contains filter paper to remove the insoluble substances. In the second step, the solution is heated so that half the amount of water evaporates. So what happens here? The second step, the solution is heated. So what happens? The water will be evaporated, and the hot solution is then transferred to a dish and followed. So this hot solution is then transferred water. After some time you will notice that the sugar crystals have formed in the dish. So after some time what happens? The sugar crystals will be formed in the dish. So like this you can separate the sugar. So here how you will separate the salt and water we have learned. Is it clear children? So here the lesson overs. So what we learned today? We learned about mixture, types of mixtures are homogeneous and heterogeneous mixtures. Homogeneous means it will mix equally in the water. Heterogeneous means it will not mix equal. It will just sediment at the bottom. And then we learned about solutions. So the substance which is going to be added to the water is called solute, and the water is called the solution. Solvent. And when you are going to add this solute and solvent, what will come? You will have solutions. For example, salt plus water which will give you salty water, sugar plus water which will give you sweet water. The next one what we learned is soluble and insoluble substances. Example for soluble is salt and sugar. An example for insoluble is sand and chalk. The next one what we learned is separation of substances. Separating insoluble substances methods are filtration, sedimentation, decantation. And when you go to soluble substances, they are all boiling and crystallization. Is it clear children? So here the lesson overs. So today's homework, write down the book back exercise page number 51 and 52, complete worksheets 1, 2 and 3, pages 56